So for the first movement in our open chain upper body mobility sequence, we're going to be doing simple scapular work, starting with elevation and depression. This simply just means we are shrugging and depressing the shoulders. So going straight up, straight down. You can see that pretty clearly from a side view here. Not super complicated. The idea is to minimize tension through the neck, jaw, face, and try to not let the rib cage do too much movement. Just the shoulder blades are moving here. Next on the agenda is scapular protraction and retraction. This is forward and backward motion of the shoulder blades on the rib cage when we are upright. So you can see here I'm reaching, and then I am not depressing, but retracting and squeezing my shoulder blades together in the back. And you can see it here clearly from the side view. Not super complicated. Again, the idea here is minimizing rib cage and neck motion. The ribs shouldn't flare, the back shouldn't arch or round. The next movement is to put those two together. So elevation, protraction, depression, retraction. That should form a forward circle if you do them in that order, as you see me doing here. We're going to do these on both sides. Again, not letting the neck move too much, and the ribs shouldn't flare, and the spine should neither flex nor extend. Just the scapula on the ribs is moving. We are going to be doing our scapular circles both forwards and backwards. So here you see me doing it backwards. It's going to start with elevation, retraction, depression, protraction. Depending on who you are and what your history is and what side feels more coordinated to you, forward circles might feel better, backward circles might feel better, left might feel better, and right might feel better. The goal here is to get both sides feeling good going forward and backward, and again minimizing excess compensatory movement, which would be showing up as excess neck movement, bobbing your head forward or backward, flaring your ribs, arching your back, anything like that. Scapular bicycles are a bit of a brain tease, but they're really good for working on coordination between the two sides. We've got one shoulder doing scapular circles forward, while the other shoulder is doing scapular circles backwards. You're going to do these both ways, again making sure none of those previously mentioned compensatory movements are showing up. So to build on those scapular bicycles, we're going to do what I call wringing out the towel. This one is very similar in that we are getting the shoulder blades and the mid-back or thoracic spine to move kind of left to right in a reciprocal rotational, kind of internal, external rotation type of motion. I want you to really focus on feeling the motion occurring from the spine outward. So you really need to pay close attention and visualize and try to really embody yourself into what's going on internally. The more you can control that thoracic spine, the better. As you reach, you're turning one arm fully up, one arm fully down, and then really reaching long to get that spine tissue to move. Moving into the arms from the scapula, now we are simply doing what we call arm circles or glenohumeral articulations. The idea with this one is to try to scour the ball and socket joint to its absolute edges while minimizing excess movement through the trunk, the neck, the spine, trying to really isolate the motion as best we can into that ball and socket joint. You're going to be making a fist so you have a nice tight squeeze, and you're going to be letting your breath flow as you do this, but again being mindful of letting your spine move too much. Don't move into pain, don't move into any clicking or popping. Moving our way down to the wrist, we're simply doing some flexion and extension here. You can do this at any angle. The idea here is simply trying to keep the forearm still as the wrist bends on the forearm in a flexion extension pattern. Along with flexion and extension, we are also going to be doing radial ulnar deviation, which is simply basically just side-to-side motion that occurs at the wrist. Again, you can be doing this on both sides, and you want to just make sure that you're not getting any clicking, popping, or pain as you go through this. The last one we're going to finish off the open chain sequence with is getting all the way down to the wrist and just doing wrist circles. Again, we want to make a pretty tight fist, squeezing our fingers tightly, and then we want to try to scour the edges of what our wrist is going to allow us in terms of motion. We want to get big circles, both clockwise and counterclockwise, both left and right side. You can play around a little bit with the angle that you're doing this at. You just see me doing it here right in front of myself with my elbow bent at about 90 degrees, but you can play with this at multiple angles and see where your limitations are in your wrist.